Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the movie Fear Street, Part 1, 1994. Fun fact, this movie is based off of books written by R.L. Stine, who you may have heard of before because he also wrote the popular series Goosebumps. This movie came out in 2021 and stars Kiana Madeira, Olivia Scott Welch, and Benjamin Flores Jr. and was directed by Leigh Janiek. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Fear Street tells how a group of teens are terrorized by a witch who has haunted their town for years. Now these teens must join together to not only stop this witch, but also to stop her goons. This movie has some horror in it as well as some funny scenes. If you like movies like Scream, Poltergeist, or even Friday the 13th, then you may like this movie. I love how this movie has 90s themes while also making the movie more modern. We see a lesbian couple in this movie as well as the cast is pretty diverse. I thought it was great that they had this movie that was set in the 90s, but they also wanted to make it more relevant for a modern viewer. I love that there were so many callbacks to the older scary movies throughout this film. There were so many that I wasn't able to catch them all, but I love to see how the director was, influenced by these older movies, but they added their own little personal twist to some of the things that they may have, taken from other movies. At first, I thought that this movie was just taking stuff from 90s slasher films like Scream, Friday the 13th, or even, A Nightmare on Elm Street. But as I was watching this movie, and even after just kind of thinking back on the movie, I realized that they were taking stuff from some other horror movies that were popular, like Poltergeist and The Shining, which didn't come out in the 90s, but are still relevant in the horror genre. I thought it was funny on how fast the killers were moving in this movie. I feel like typically when we watch horror films, like especially like Friday the 13th or like the Halloween movies, we always talk about how slow they're moving. But in this movie, they were like, we're not moving slow. We're coming for you and we're going to be running. I love how this movie immediately starts off with a bang. It kind of reminded me of how Scream did this, where they started off with an actress that some people may have knew and killed her off immediately. So in Scream, we had Drew Barrymore, and then in this movie, you see Maya Hawke is killed, who you may have known from Stranger Things, who is also the daughter of Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke. I thought it was cool how all these teens in this movie had different skills and they were utilized. I love when a movie has this ensemble cast, and instead of letting one person have the spotlight and just shine throughout the whole movie, they highlight how each person in the group is different and each person contributes something. So I really like that this movie showed that, how, each of these teens, even though they're young, they know some stuff. This cast is filled with a lot of newcomers, and I thought they did a great job with what they were given. I think it's hard coming into the film industry, especially making a horror movie that takes influence from other horror movies, and I thought that they all did a great job with what they were given to make a great movie. This movie had a great soundtrack filled with different songs from the 90s. I love that they include, 90s music in a movie that is based in the 90s because it really helps the viewer feel like they're transported back in time. It's funny when you watch movies that are set in the 90s how there's always a mall involved. When you think back to the 90s and where people went to hang out and see their friends, most likely they went to the mall. I thought it was cool how they included that in this movie because it's something that, we often see in movies based in the 90s because we know that that's what they did for fun. Also, how come parents in the 90s left their kids alone so often? Like, you barely see an adult in this movie, and these kids are being haunted by these various different monsters. It would have been great for a parent to come and help if they could. Katie was my favorite character in this movie. I thought it was hilarious how she had this little, like, drug little ring going on in this little small town. I thought it was great how in the end they utilized her talents. Even though the plan didn't go as they wanted to, she became useful in the end, and she really held her own when she was fighting off these monsters. My favorite part of this movie is when all the kids are in the school and they realize what the monsters are after and how the monsters keep finding each one of them. I thought it was great how they each used their skills to come up with this great plan in order to lure the monsters to the school and trap them in a specific location and try to get rid of them. Even though the plan didn't work, I thought it was just a great plan and how, these kids stood their ground and fought back instead of just like running around helpless throughout the movie. They were like, no, we're going to come up with a plan. We need to figure out how we're going to handle this instead of like running around and like acting scared and just people just getting killed off. Fear Street is a good horror movie with a cool story that pays homage to other scary movies that you may have seen before. I thought the cast was great and I can't wait to see the sequels. If you have not watched Fear Street Part 1 1994, I suggest that you go on Netflix and watch it. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.